I love Forbes breaking news in large part because they will do things like this. They made a massive, well, maybe not massive, but they made a considerable supercut of all of the questions that Karoline Leavitt had to field in the White House press briefing when it comes to the Epstein files. And I just want to react to this because here you can see how our government is reacting to criticism, and very appropriate criticism as well, from the mainstream media about the fact that they have chosen to cover for and protect abusers who were associating with Jeffrey Epstein and used those connections to allegedly almost all the people involved, or at least a considerable amount of the people involved in Epstein's activities, were abusing children. So here we've got Karoline Leavitt's answers to these questions. Let's see how she responds.
Today. Sure. Jackie.
Thank you, Karoline. There's been a lot of discussion about the Epstein
my
files
goodness,
and the
why the heck is it
president's
so
comments
quiet?
yesterday calling it a hoax. Can you clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
The president is referring to the fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make. The Democrats had
that's true, but it doesn't make it a hoax.
Control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency in regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his.
Hold on, but are you gonna take issue with the fact that Democrats didn't do anything while you're doing nothing? Like, no, it's hypocritical. Now I feel for Karoline Leavitt, because the job of the press secretary is literally to lie to the American people to make America seem as good as possible, right? It's PR. So Karoline Leavitt might not even agree with what she's saying here. She may not even believe this. But just like being forced into a tough situation of having to defend the president of the United States for protecting child abusers is just like absolutely unenviable. This is the type of thing that I would resign over. I'd be like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I could just sit up here with a clean conscience defending someone who is defending child abusers. Like, that's just like, that's a bridge too far for me. I'm going to be honest.
Heinous crimes. It was this president who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them.
And by the way, some of these people are literally about to leave the government over this, and that's the whole situation.
To these high law enforcement positions, and they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people, but he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about. The president has been working.
It literally is. It literally is. Now, I think it's a distraction, and people are allowing themselves to be distracted by this story because at the end of the day, no one's going to be voting on the release of the Epstein files, especially now that the presidential election is over. No one's going to be voting on it. And also, very few people who are following this story, I'm talking about like pedestrians like myself, who are following this story, very few of us have been victimized by Jeffrey Epstein or his associates, right? So it doesn't actually strictly or like directly affect us. This is a massive distraction. I don't know if this is an intentional distraction from specific things. It could be a distraction from the effects of the big beautiful bill, for all I know. But I do know for sure that this does not affect you. Okay, if you're watching this right now, this does not affect you. And yet you're choosing to think about it, you're choosing to focus on it. No hate to you, because I think it's very natural for people to be kind of interested in other folks' business. I've done videos about internet drama before, so I'm not going to act like I'm above it all. But I'm just saying, if you are thinking that this is the most important story in the world, I'm just not sure that it is, to be honest, right? Especially when it comes to just practical information and knowledge.
working so hard this week. On Tuesday, he went to Pennsylvania, where he secured $90 billion in investments for the Commonwealth, for the people of that state. After that, he came back to the Oval Office at 8 p.m. He went in there to whip votes to get the Genius Act signed into law. And because of his efforts, that bill is now going to be signed and passed. The following day, yesterday, he meets with a foreign leader, the King of Bahrain, to secure more investments into this country. And then yesterday afternoon, the president is in the East Room of the White House mourning with parents who have lost their children because of fentanyl, signing a bipartisan piece of legislation. And not a single cable network in this country took that event live and covered that event like they should. Those are the issues the president cares about. What could be more important to the American people than helping families who have lost their children? Those are the issues this president is going to remain focused on.
I understand he wants to move on from this story, but you do have some prominent figures, including the Senate Majority Leader, the House Speaker, voicing support for the files to come out. Representative Massey collecting signatures that would force a discharge petition for a vote on the floor for this. It doesn't seem to be going away. What is stopping the administration from just redacting any sensitive information, grand jury information, and putting out what is appropriate so that the American people can decide and then let this story die?
Well, in terms of redactions or grand jury seals, those are questions for the Department of Justice. Those are also questions for the judges who have that information under a seal, and that would have to be requested, and a judge would have to approve it. That's out of the president's control. He has said, in agreement with some of the leaders on Capitol Hill, that if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice come across any other credible evidence, they should provide that to the American people. The president has said that, and he agrees with them on that.
Why did he fire Maureen Comey?
The Department of Justice did, and I would defer you to them. Dasha.
Has the White House been directly in touch with some of the MAGA influencers that are still not satisfied with the administration's handling? And has the message to them been similar to what the president has said, which is sort of either let this go or we don't need your support?
This is a really good question, because I think that not enough people are pointing out the fact that a lot of the MAGA base, not all of them, but a lot of the MAGA base has sort of turned on Trump because of his handling of this situation, right? And I find it really interesting because MAGA is sort of pitched as this cult. I think that MAGA is still a cult to a degree, but when it comes to just the right in general, or like the entirety of the right, not everyone who was a conservative or not everyone who was a Republican is just going to go in lockstep with what Donald Trump wants or supports, especially when it's obviously a wrong thing to do, right? Protecting child abusers. So people like to say, oh, Trump supporters are all a cult, or like the Republicanism or conservatism or even MAGA is a cult. And I think MAGA is still a cult, but the majority of folks in MAGA, I think, still are behind Donald Trump. But a lot of them are questioning their support now, especially those who are more on like the libertarian side. Like I want to say Dave Smith has sort of turned on him. There are folks from the whole Patrick Bet-David network who've turned on Trump. So to act like the right is just this monolith is a little bit absurd.
The president and this team are always in contact with the president's supporters, with voices of many kinds on both sides of the aisle. I think that's part of the reason this president is a great president, because he's willing to listen and hear other people's perspectives. But ultimately, he has led this country, not just over the past 6 months to historic success, but also through his first 4 years as president. And as the leader and the creator of the MAGA movement, he has led through these perilous times for our country based on instinct and in the best interest of the country. And as I always say, the American people should trust in President Trump.
And one on
John,
the Fed chair.
go ahead, John.
Man, look, it's really hard to ask people to trust Donald Trump when he's protecting Epstein's friends and protecting Epstein's clients. And that's reasonable, right? I kind of hate how Karoline Leavitt, because of the job that she's in, she is forced to pretend like it's reasonable to demand that the American people just trust Donald Trump on this. Like, believe me, guys, he's got a really good reason for protecting Epstein's friends. Like, come on. No one is buying that line. I know you have to sell it because of the position that you're in, but nobody's buying this. Nobody's buying this at all.
The president on Monday announced
Go ahead.
The president said that he floated the idea of a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. Can you confirm that? And has he asked the Attorney General to do this, to appoint a special prosecutor to look it over?
Well, the idea was floated from someone in the media to the president. The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels. And as for his discussions with the Attorney General, I'm not sure. Deanna.
Thank you so much. Do you know what the president's reaction was to Mike Johnson saying that he wants additional files released, the Epstein files? Was there a conversation with Mike Johnson about that following his comments?
I won't discuss the president's private conversations with the Speaker of the House, but as I answered to Jackie's question earlier, the president has said if the Attorney General and the Department of Justice and the FBI have any more credible evidence in regards to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, they should put that forward. He has called on them to do that. Sure.
Thank you, Caroline.
With a few days.
I'll go to all of you, starting with the lady in blue. Go ahead on that.
Caroline.
Thank you, Caroline. Two questions. So the first is that President Trump said that the Attorney General only gave him a brief overview of what was in these Epstein files. Does he have knowledge or an understanding of what is in the files related to Epstein that have not been released?
Not to my knowledge, and that's a question for the Attorney General, as I said, and the President has told the Attorney General if they have any more credible evidence, they should release it.
Is that evidence, would she have to run that by the President before she released it?
I don't think so. He said if she has any more credible evidence, she should release it.
Does the president believe that justice has been served in the Epstein case?
Look, the President believes that he directed the Department of Justice to do an exhaustive and thorough...
The answer is no.
President believes that he directed the Department of Justice to do an exhaustive and thorough review, and they did that. And they all agreed, the FBI director, the deputy FBI director, the Attorney General, on the memo that they drafted and they released.
Oh man, this is rough, man. This is rough. I don't envy Karoline Leavitt's position for a moment. This is just awful. You know, I like to try to be hopeful at the ends of political videos like this, and I'm like, I hope this happens. I hope that happens. And I'm going to be honest. I do hope that the Epstein files do come out. Maybe someone will leak them. Hey, somebody, be a national hero and do that for us. I would certainly appreciate that. But honestly, I'm dubious. I really don't think that this information is going to come out, at least under the Donald Trump administration. Because look, if it was going to get leaked, I think it would have leaked already. And I think that because it's in the hands of outside entities, I've heard rumors that Israel has a copy. I'm not sure if that's true, but I've heard rumors that Israel has a copy. That really throws a wrench into things, because maybe it's been leaked to someone outside of the U.S. government. Maybe someone outside the U.S. government knows what is on the list or knows names that are on the list, but is afraid to release it, not just because of the United States going after them, but also because of Israel going after them, of other nations going after them. Maybe it could implicate Russians. I don't know. There's really no telling who else is on the list. It could be a wide range of individuals and a whole massive web tied into all these other world leaders and world powers. You really never know. But this is just horrible, because of course, I said earlier, this story does not directly affect you, I don't think. At the same time, I'm huge on, hey, we've got a law in the books. We need to either enforce the law or change the law. And especially when it comes to the abuse of children, that absolutely needs to be punished. That list will give us a really good clue as to who was abusing certain children and how. And there's video evidence of certain things happening. We know this. Pam Bondi has admitted to this. I think Kash Patel has admitted to this on the Joe Rogan Experience. There's video evidence of things happening that's just being hidden. Those people who perpetrated those actions are being protected. And I think it's completely inexcusable This makes me so glad that I did not, 100% throw my support behind Donald Trump despite voting for him during the presidential election cycle, because it was like, nah, man, this guy is lying too much for my tastes. I think that he's not lying any more than any standard American politician, but he's delivering on promises. He's promising things that he did not deliver on last time, that he promised last time and failed to deliver. He's kind of running on a fraudulent record. He's pretending like he hasn't promised us these things before. Big red flags. I feel vindicated, honestly, that we're seeing even more red flags here of Donald Trump's behavior. Not to say that I hate the guy. I don't hate the guy. He still has policies that I support, but I can't support the man, honestly. How can you support the guy who's protecting Jeff Epstein's friends? You can't really. It's impossible, and it's sad. But that's just where I have to be politically, because this. I didn't say, hey, I'm gonna stop supporting Donald Trump now. Now Trump did this with his own actions and his own words. This is entirely his fault.